Now you become a host
Yeah, it
actually.
was in record mode now.
Record, yeah, I can record. And okay, yeah. And now let me hand overing this session to the Dr. Shankar. So in fact, Dr. Shankar is my colleague in the department, and he is a good researcher and he is a good motivator for all the students. I think all the students and then faculty members from various institute will enjoy his session. So now, Dr. Shankar, I request to take over the session, please.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sandeep and Ashwin. It is very honored to present in IEEE Vizag chapter. So let me introduce today's session. It is on introduction to reliability aspects of power electronic systems. So you are aware that these days, so we use more power electronics. So because even in household appliances, various places we used to work with the power electronics. So for example, if you see the necessity of power electronic systems, if you see, one is for power conversion. So power conversion can be from DC to DC. So where it can be a fixed DC, it can be variable DC as input, or for a variable DC and then fixed DC or variable DC as an output. So here, for a given DC voltage, then our requirement may be conversion to a fixed DC voltage. Or even if there is a variable DC voltage, then our objective is to control the voltage to the desired objective. So we have a DC-DC converters. Then we have a DC-AC converters, where the input is DC and the output is required AC. Actually, here our control variables are both output voltage as well as the frequency. So, and similarly, other power conversion devices are AC to DC. These are called rectifiers. So, where we have AC supply as input and DC. So, here the output variable parameters vary like voltage. Now, the objectives are again, so we'll discuss a bit later. Similarly, the other converter topologies is AC converter topologies. So, we call sometimes called as cycloconverters also. So this converters finds a lot of applications. So this is what like a major advantage of power electronics is basically converting one form of voltage to other form of voltage at the desired voltage levels or desired frequency levels. So coming to the next application of power electronic system is power conditioning. Power conditioning means you are aware that if you use a simple rectifier, just I'm putting like this. Just a simple rectifier, you know that a rectifier has some current harmonics. So if you see the current wave shape, okay, this could be the current wave shape. It is not a sinusoidal waveform. But again, this same power electronics. So basically, power electronics is causing a pollution or creating some harmonics in the input, otherwise grid currents, I could say. This current harmonics can be mitigated or minimized by connecting some active shunt filter. Okay, so here, I mean, the power electronics, another role is not only to convert one form of energy or one form of the voltage to other form of voltage. So these power electronics topologies are used to doing some power conditioning, like injecting harmonics 180 degrees phase shift to the actual harmonics. Okay, or you can no you can control the active power, you can control the reactive power. So once if the bus or if the grid requires reactive power, then through the power electron device we could able to give the reactive power. So if it needs active power, you just give the active power. So there is a power electronics plays a huge role in maintaining the required phase angle between the grid voltage and the injected current. And similarly, the other application of the power electronics is impedance matching, where people like many people are working in this area. Impedance matching, if you just take a simple boost converter, where this is the input voltage V in, and this is a voltage V naught. Like if you have a PV system, so PV system, then this is a boost converter. If I change the duty ratio, the effective impedance across the PV can be varied. So if I vary the effective impedance, then we can make the PV system to operate at MPP, maximum power point. So this is where like impedance matching is another application. So where the impedance across the PV is seen like RMPP, and at that place the power from the PV is equal to maximum power point power, or maximum available power can be drawn by adjusting the impedance across the PV panel accordingly. Okay, so once if there is a change in insolation or irradiation, then if I change the duty ratio, the effective impedance can be varied across the PV panel. Therefore, we can draw the maximum power point. And then another application of the power electronic systems is intelligent control, like the flexibility of enabling the intelligent control to a system. For example, you just see in your household appliances, or these days IoTs are coming into picture. So there was some solid state drives, solid state devices, like we can close the circuit or we can break the circuit. Okay, so somewhere some people are there, like remotely also we can turn on our fridge, our air conditioner. So that is because like we have some solid state circuits. So intelligent control is possible with the solid state devices. Similarly, if you talk about autonomous vehicles also, there we need to control the motor speed, or we have to accelerate or we have to deaccelerate. So even in that applications also, like we need power electronics. So these are some applications among many. And coming to applications, you just see we use in transportation, like electrical vehicles, even aviation. We use it in like electrical, like a lot of places of transportation, like even in home appliances also, or portable electronics. If you see a simple monitor requires a DC voltage. Even a laptop, it has to function, means it requires a DC voltage. And even mobile phones, where even in the mobile phones also we have integrated power electronic systems. So if you see about the industry, so many industries these days, they use like VBF technique for induction motor speed drive control. And then they use for hoists, they use for cranes, controlling the cranes. So like even medium industry applications or heavy industry applications, when the small industry applications, this power electronics has a huge role. Then electrical power generation and transmission. As just now I have given example for maximum power point tracking in PV systems. See, in case of fuel cells, the voltage, where the voltage it was very low, you have to convert a small voltage to higher voltage. There we require a high gain boost converters. Similarly, if you talk about a wind generation, yes, we require power electronic systems. And then for transmission, HVDC transmission, HVAC transmissions, so we require this power electronic systems. This is about applications. Coming to the performance indices, there are so many performance indices. Few of them are common, few are specific to the applications. For example, if you see the power loss, efficiency, and reliability, no, this must be this parameters should be small for all. Power losses should be low, and then it should be more efficient. It should be more reliable. And similarly, other criteria is like VA rating. Like if I say one device, so the device rating is 1200 and this ampere rating is 10 ampere. Okay, so if I want to do some operation, but if 600 volts, 5 amperes switch is enough for me, then you see a VA rating of this, it is higher than this one. So what I mean was, when we are designing any converters, then you should take care about optimal choosing of the device, optimal choosing of the topology, so that VA rating can be reduced. Similarly, the number of devices has to be reduced. The devices, it can be diodes, it can be switches, it can be number of inductance, whatever. There are so many devices like gate drive circuits. Okay, and then of course the other important parameter like cost. So one is initial cost, the operation cost, and the maintenance cost. These are common for all. These are common for all applications. Now coming to like these parameters, whatever I have indicated: input current, output voltage, ripples, THD, and power factor. If you take a PV system, or if you take a battery, like a battery, or if you take a fuel cell, so if I'm drawing the currents from the PV, then the currents can have some ripples like this, So this is called as input current ripples. So there was a lot of research has available in the literature, like the impact of ripples on the maximum power extracted from the PV. The maximum power extracted from the PV decreases if we have more ripples. Okay, so it is good that you should have less ripples when we are talking about the PV as an input. Similarly, battery also, the lifetime of the battery decays if you have more ripples, especially once if you are charging. Just imagine that I have a DC-DC controller. Okay, I have a battery here. I have a battery here. Okay, so I have a battery here. But because it is battery is connected, you may think that the voltage is constant. But just after immediately after DC-DC duty ratio of the DC-DC converter, if it happens to we have more voltage ripples, that affects on the current. Therefore, the battery life decays. So the point here is, like when we are charging the battery or when we are discharging a battery, even the current ripples are like the current as I shown, like plays a important role in the life cycle of the battery. Similarly, fuel cells also. Fuel cells are more sensitive to the current density. So they are optimal, like they have some optimal operating point. If the operating point is changing, okay, again, the lifetime of the fuel cells will get decreased. Similarly, if you talk about a simple inverter, so we are aware that so this inverter has a lot of requirement, like the THD value should be low, because we have to emulate like a sinusoidal waveform. Okay, we need to reduce the size of the filter. So one requirement, if the perspective is inverter, then you have to reduce the total harmonic distortion. Okay, so similarly, if it is a simple rectifier, this is a simple rectifier. I am drawing the currents from the grid. I am drawing the currents from the grid. So if that is the case, then this current should be more sinusoidal in nature. So whether it is inline depends upon like what is the amount of reactive power injection, what is the amount of active power injection. Okay, so these are some important background about the power electronics in the performance indices. Now the focus is on reliability. This session is dedicated to assessment of reliability and then improving the reliability. Okay, so there are few terms associated with one is what is meant by reliability. So reliability is basically probability which performs required functions of an intent period of time under given environment and operating conditions. Coming to failure rate means basically it is proneness to failure of item after after time t has elapsed. Basically, the failure rate, if you just see in the literature, the failure rate falls like this. It falls bath tub curve. Okay, so here this is a failure rate lambda. Basically, if you like when we this is called burn-in period, and this is called user period, and this is called wear out. Okay, most like if you see most of the devices at the time of installation or even immediately after the installation, they tend to fail. Okay, they have less reliability. Okay, or they are more tend to fail. But once if a few devices like they are working, means their lifetime is high, and after some time, after some maybe some 5 years or 6 years, their life will decreases. That is called, this period is called wear out period. So failure rate basically follows a Bathour curve, and then there was a mean time to failure. The mean time to failure is given by this is called MTTF. This is also one of the important performance indices. Where this is given as like average time in which an item operates without fail. So that is the average time without which an item without failing. So the mean time to failure is given by this equation. So then this is also named as 1 by lambda. So it is inversely proportional to failure rate also. This is called mean time to failure. So this is an important metrics of identifying whether the converter topology is good or not. Then there was another important metrics called mean time to repair. So this is another important metrics because sometimes this like if you see about military applications and avionics applications, okay, mean time to repair is very important. Okay, then availability. So availability is given by this equation MTTF divided by MTTF, sorry, MTTF plus MTTR, where the availability is the probability that a system will be functioning at a given time. Okay, so this is about reliability terms. So coming to the importance of reliability assessment, why we need to do a reliability assessment. See, basically, first of all, we have to take a decision. So what should be the operating hours? How many hours it has to work? So based on that, we have to take a decision whether which element has to be selected. Okay, and depends upon the cost also. So we need to optimize both the performance as well as cost. So the reliability assessment will help us to balance the cost components as well as performance components. Then one more important advantage of reliability assessments means basically previously it is like a previous business concept is just a product to based companies. But nowadays they are moving to holistic service providers. So it is not that they sell the product and then they leave. So they are doing service also. So once if they able to design the product which comes for long duration, then their service cost will decreases. So this is a this is one way of business model. Then coming to the other important parameters, other is operation minimum optimization. See, for example, we develop some control strategies. So to see that, okay, once if the temperature is exceeding this, you just stop it. Okay, so operation optimization can be done based on various parameters. That is another important assessment advantage. So coming to another very important feature is when do we replace the component? So when we have to schedule the maintenance is other important parameter. So next, how do we compute this reliability? So there are various methods available. These three methods are named as constant failure methods. This is called physics of failure method. This is a more accurate method. But among all this mission, this is called military handbook based estimation, reliability estimation approach. This method is highly used. Therefore, in this lecture also, I am discussing about how do we compute the reliability based on military handbook 217. Then coming to the areas related to reliability. So the major areas of research which is going in the reliability perspective is management of thermal and electrical stresses. This is a very high importance because they tend to increase efficiency if you have a proper thermal management or proper proper overload management, proper transient component management. Okay, similarly some research areas including for developing the fault tolerant topologies. Okay, and control strategies also, through control strategies, so we can increase the reliability of the given system. Then real-time simulations will help us in assessing the reliability. Now coming to this slide is basically drawn from Yang. Actually, this is an industry-based survey of reliability in power electronic converters. They made few queries and then they made a survey basically. The participants in that survey is few of them component manufacturers are 70 number, aerospace 6 number, automotive company people 7, motor drive 16, and others 9. So what they made a survey, they just posted which are the fragile components. So based on the inputs, they say, most of the industries, they say the most fragile components is first one is power device and the second one is capacitors. Okay, So these two are most fragile or more fault tolerable, fault prone components. So this is one and this is other. So here also our discussion is on capacitor failure models as well as developing the failure models for power devices or semiconductor devices. Okay, then inductors and resistance also will fail, but they are very comparatively very less. And even connectors also may tend to fail. Gate drive circuits is another biggest problem. Gate drive circuits is another problem. So um, of course I told you, right? So this is the objective for today's session. Then they also make a survey of what are the likely causes of failure. So one is environment, other is system transients. Of course, you just see all of them are they are contributing equally. Heavy loads or overloads. Okay, so environment again, temperature swings. Okay, or harsh environments. Okay, or others. So then another important parameters is failure to cost ratio. Depends upon the application. For example, you see in a military applications, we cannot okay, if one component is failed, we cannot estimate the cost of the one component. Even it is a small component, if it is not working, okay, it is huge damage. Or even aerospace applications also. So if you just see that failure to the cost ratio means here failure of a single component in a system. Here what is meant by failure is a single component of system, whereas cost is nothing but cost of the complete system. So sometimes the failure of the single component like may not affect much. So for example, you take a simple transistor radio with you, one transistor is failed, then it is completely offline, and we don't bother even if we didn't listen for one day. So you can take it and then get serviced. Maybe at the time the transistor cost or failure to the cost ratio may be less than 10. So like that, if you see no the ratios, see greater than 80%, you see. So some applications desired, like even the failure of single component, so will leads to huge loss. Okay, so that is why this matrices will help us to understand the importance of the reliability. Then like how do we improve the reliability? So again, from the same survey, then they say that thermal management is one important parameter. Like these two, increased coolant and then larger heat sink. So these two are related to thermal management. And then parallel capacitors. And then backup means here it is redundancy. This is the point I am discussing here. And then voltage suppressor, like dv by dt, di by dt. So the protections, then others. Okay, this is how. Like here you could see that the large portions of the reliability can be improved through either a backup or increased coolant or larger heat sinks. And then like let us now focus on like the circuit wise redundant circuits. So here the redundancy in the modified power electronic systems can be classified into switch level, leg level, module level, and system level. Whereas this part, redundant switching states and redundant series, which I'll show a bit later. So this is a DC mid connection. This is a DC mid connection way of it's a power electronic system. So where it is basically, if one switch here fails, then the A, like for example the switch in A phase fails, then the midpoint of the DC will be connected to the same A phase. Okay, so we maintain connection of A phase. The operation and working will be detailed. So in this survey you can refer it. Then similarly, there was a redundant series or parallel, like you see here. In case if one of the switches failed, then what we can do was this is the redundant. This is called complete redundant leg. Okay, if this is failed, then you just short this, and then you give the control pulses to here, so that this will act like a phase. Like this two will be controlled to control the phase A voltage. Okay, so once if this is turned off, what we are doing was, so we are replacing this with SR1 and SR2. So here by turning the TA. Okay, so this is called redundant series or of course I have shown you a parallel leg, right? And so another example, module level, just to give an example here, the module level. You see, for example, you have a cascaded H-bridge converter. This is one cascaded H-bridge converter. This is other cascaded H-bridge converter. If once one S1 fails, for example, here if once S1 fails, then you have to bypass this cascaded converter. Let this is cascaded converter 1, and this is the cascaded converter 2. You have to bypass this. If I want to bypass this, then what you can do is you simply connect these two switches so that you are bypassing. So even if you have a fault here, then you are bypassing the bypassing this complete unit. This is called module level converters. Okay, and there was a system level converters also. System level converters means just imagine that it is a 3-phase inverter. 1, 2, 3. This is a simple DC, and I have another inverter. 1, 2, 3. They connected parallelly, and here also they connected parallelly. Okay, this type of system, so they called as a system level redundant circuits. Okay, if for example, just imagine that previously 1 and 2 are operating, in case if there is a failure in the first inverter, then the 2 alone is operating. Okay, so this is other way of this is one example of a system level redundant topologies. Okay, now so coming to the major portion, so how do we assess the, or how do we find the reliability of the system? So if you see the military handbook, this is a reference here, military handbook. So based on the military handbook, so we can find the reliability of the MOSFET, we can find the reliability of the diode and inductor and capacitor using these formulas. Okay, in these formulas, if you see, this lambda B is common. So this is called basic failure rate. So you can refer that base fail rate from military handbook. For each component, they gave what should be the base failure rate for given application. Similarly, pi t is nothing but temperature factor. Here, pi t is the temperature factor. Where Tg is a control variable. I'll discuss how do we compute the Tg bit later. And similarly, pi a is application factor. Depends upon the power level that again military handbook has given. What is, for example, below 2 watts range, what should be the pi a? Below 500 watts range, what should be the pi a? Below 2000 watts, what should be the pi a? Or greater than 2000 watts, what is the pi a? And similarly, you have a quality factor also, right? So, and then you have an environmental factor. Environmental factor means, for example, you see harsh environments. So harsh environments, sometimes you have a radiation also plays into picture, or mechanical vibrations. If you see electrical vehicles, there you have mechanical vibrations, plays a huge role. Okay, like environmental factor, again it depends upon the application. So it can be found, all the parameters can be found from military handbook, right? And similarly, if you see diode, again here also pi t pi s is a stress factor of diode, and depends upon the magnitude of voltage. Here also based on the levels, this stress factor was designed, and then constant construction factor of a diode. So it depends upon, again, so few devices like as the facility of a heat sink, few devices don't have the facility of a heat sink. Okay, so like pi c is depends upon that. And similarly, you have a inductor also, inductor again, so all the terms pi q, pi e, we already discussed it. Capacitor, pi c, we were capacitor factor, like delta. So this is about failure rates of this is how we can calculate the failure rates of different components. But among this, like pi t, all of these components has pi t. So where pi t is depends upon this junction temperature. Pi t depends upon this junction temperature. So here you just see the formula here. The junction temperature is nothing but case temperature plus thermal resistance. This is the thermal resistance between junction to case into P switch or diode. Here, what is this? This is the power loss. And similarly, once like how do we compute this TC is like ambient temperature plus case to air, ambient temperature thermal resistance into power loss. So here this is these are the formulas to compute the power loss of the switch and the diode. So where this VT is nothing but the voltage across the switch when the current is 0, and then on state resistance, and it also depends upon the frequency, and then open circuit voltage. And similarly, like RD is the on-state resistance of the diode, and VT is a cut-in like cut-off voltage. You know, then like this P switch depends upon the duty ratio, because like it may depends upon the duty ratio on time. Otherwise, simply I can say T on by T. In case of inverter, it becomes half. In case of duty ratio, it can be the given value. Okay, it depends upon, again, it depends upon what is where we are, what is our intent to operate. Okay, and then we can find the hotspot temperature of the inductor also. So where this is ambient temperature and this is a change in temperature of the inductor. So it is, again, it's a function of the power loss of the inductor and the radiation area, like how much, it's inversely proportional. If you have more radiation area, then the increase in the temperature is less. Okay, so this is about the the procedure in calculating the lambda. What is this lambda? Basically is a failure rate. So this lambda is a failure rate. So based on the lambda only, we will assess the reliability of the given converter. So let us see how do we compute. So just an example. First, initially you have to compute lambda S, lambda D, lambda L, lambda C based on the previous formulas. Okay, these formulas are available. Just refer this textbook. So this is enough so that you can compute the values of lambda S, lambda D, lambda L, and lambda C. You have to identify this also, like junction temperature of the switch. Like this parameters you can you can obtain from data sheet. So this can be obtained from data sheet, and so VT can be obtained from data sheet, RD can be obtained from data sheet, REC can be obtained from data sheet, C0 can be obtained from a data sheet. Okay, once if like other parameters are known, so the parameters how do we are optimizing was, one is from a handbook, military handbook, and other is from the corresponding data sheet. Once if you got the failure rates of the given switch, diode, inductor, and then capacitor, then you have to find the transition Markov transition chain. Here, like you see here, if diode is failed, what happens to the boost converter? It will not work. If the switch is failed, the boost converter will not work. If the capacitor is failed, the boost converter will not work. So here, if any component fails between input and output, the system is failed. Therefore, like the transition, the rate of transition from fault free, this is called fault free state, this is called faulty state, or non-operative state. Non-operative state, it is not working state otherwise. So not working state, non-operating, fault free to non-operative or not working state is depends upon the failure rate. You have to add, for example, if the switch is weakest element among all the three, then the complete failure rate depends upon the weakest element. So here, if you have like this is a full working state, this is not working state, there is no intermediate stage for this type of boost converter. So what we do was the transition rate depends upon the failure rate of the switch, failure rate of the diode, failure rate of the capacitor, and failure rate of the inductor, lambda S plus lambda D plus lambda L plus lambda C. Then we can compute the reliability. So based on this equation, reliability is equal to e power minus, so exponential minus lambda T. Okay, this is a formula. Reliability, so is given by e power minus lambda T, where lambda is given by lambda S plus lambda D plus lambda L plus lambda C. So then a mean time to failure, so is this formula 0 to infinity R of T dt. So here, though it is integration, it is e power, so you can easily do this integration. So the mean time to failure, once if you do the integration for this R of T, you will get 1 by lambda S plus lambda D plus lambda C plus lambda L. So you just see here, if mean time to failure, just see here, mean time to failure will be higher if you have low failure rates of the switch, low failure rates of the diode, low failure rates of the capacitor, low failures of the inductor. So how can we get the low failure rates of the switch or diode or the capacitor or inductor? So to make the temperature below some values, Tj values below some values, that is what we have seen based on this formula. Okay, And then coming to the interleaved boost converter, the interleaved boost converter is shown here. Okay, so in this converter, just see, like I have a two diodes, two switches, two inductors, and one capacitor and one resistance. Okay, this is the interleaved boost converter. You are aware. In case of interleaved boost converter, like this S1 and S2 are operated in complementary in nature. So if like this is the current of the current drawn by the L1 is like this. If this is L1 current and this is L2 current, the net current from the source is this. We are aware about the interleaved converter, but how do we compute the reliability analysis for the interleaved converter is the procedure I am going to explain. Here, first of all, you have to calculate what is the reliability, like failure rate of L1, failure rate of L2, failure rate of S1, failure rate of S2, failure rate of D1, and failure rate of D2. Okay. Now, just to see how to make a transition matrix. So here, there are two, like you just see here, there are three states here, unlike previous state. Previously, you have only two states. One is working fault-free state, other is no idle state. I mean, not working state. But here you have three state. One is fault-free state. Fault-free state. Other is post-fault state. Other is not operative or not working state, no working, or not operative or no working state. Okay, so you just see here, if just imagine that D1 is failed. Okay, if D1 is failed, then you can stop this S1. Okay, and then you just trigger only S2 and then pump the power to the secondary. Okay, so this is what the second stage means. The first stage, like both S1 and S2 is operating. In the second stage, in case of failure of there may be like possibility that there is a failure of S1. If S1 is failed, then you are operating only S2. If S2 is failed, then you are operating only S1. If D1 is failed, then you are operating S2. If D2 is failed, then you are operating S1. If inductor 1 is failed, then you are operating S2. If inductor 2 is failed, then you are operating S1. So the here you have to find the transition rate. The transition rate from fault-free state to post-fault state. That means at least one converter. I mean, here I could say, let this is a C1, this is C2. At least one has to operate. Based on this, like the probability here can be computed like lambda S1, lambda S2, lambda D1, lambda D2, lambda L1, and lambda L2. Why? Because see here, if you see here, if the capacitor is failed, okay, if the capacitor is failed, then you cannot see. If the capacitor is failed, you cannot come here. I mean, you will not go to this state. You cannot go to this state. So if the capacitor is failed, you will be going directly to here. Okay, you are going directly to here. Or if any two devices, maybe if S1 and S2 both fails, then you will be going directly to complete working state to complete not working state. Or if two diodes are failed, then you will be going to this way. Okay, so here the probability of coming from complete working state to complete idle state is given by lambda C plus failure rate or possibility of failure of here is I'll write failure rate corresponding to two switches. Okay, so but in case of see, in case of coming from fault free state to post fault state. Okay, so like here you could see, if S1 is failed, then you will go from fault free state to post fault, or S2 failed, or D1 failed, or D2 failed, or L1 failed, or L2 failed. So you just see if any, like you have to add up, if any of these are failed, then you can say that it is moving from 11 to 10. Okay, if any of the devices failed, so you have to add the failure rates of inductor 1, inductor 2, inductor S1, S2, D1, D2. That is why we added. So okay, this is the failure rate. This is the total failure rate. So where we can get the transition from fault free state to faulty state. Okay, but if the capacitor fails, If the capacitor fails, directly it comes from fault free state to non-working state. Okay, so this is how we make. Then lambda 2. So just imagine that S1 is failed. If S1 is failed, then what we will do? So we will operate L2, we will operate S2, we will operate D2, and of course capacitor is there. Now from 1 0, that means we are already at a state of like S1 is failed. So here imagine that S1 is failed. We are at here. If S1 is failed, then the probability of going to 0 0 state depends upon the failure rate of which devices? The failure rate of working components, that is L2, D2, S2, that is lambda S2, lambda D2, lambda L2, and the capacitor failure rate. Okay, in case if S2 is failed, or in case if simply D1 is failed, if D1 is failed, then you have to operate S2. So when we are operating, so here D2 is failed. If D2 is failed, then you have to operate S1. When operating S1, you have to take the failure rate of L1, you have to take the failure rate of S1, you have to take the failure rate of because if D1 is failed, then you have to operate this D2, then S2. So you have to take the failure rate of lambda like S2, D2, L2 will come. Okay, so this is how we calculate the failure rate. Once if you know the failure rate, then you have to make a state equation. The state equation is given by Chapman. Basically, this equation is given by, it is like this. The rate of transition of the probability changes with respect to transition matrix diagram. So here we start, basically we start with 1, 0, 0. What is the meaning here? P1 of t, we start with 1, P2 of t, 0 and 0. That means if you start a converter, so we assume that a converter is working properly. So if we assume that the converter is working properly, then then it is at this state. This is at this state. So it is 1, this is 0, this is 0. So like the probability, I'm talking about the probabilities. The probability at a t is equal to 0, the probability of working in the first state, I mean 1 1 state is 1. The probability of operating in 1 0 state is 2. The probability of operating in 0 0 state is 0. So, okay, so this is the probability. So we start with 1 1, but during the course of time, when the t progresses, then the probabilities depends upon the rate of probabilities, which depends upon this transition matrix. But how do we compute this transition matrix? We will see. So first of all, just imagine that this is the values known to you. This is lambda 1 PR, this is lambda 1 1 minus PR, and this is lambda 2 PR. So you have to do a matrix like this. The failure rate of, you don't like failure rate to be in first 1 1. You don't put anything here. From here to here. So from here to here, 1 1 to 1 0. The failure rate is given by lambda 1 PR, and from 1 to 3. So here it is 1 1. So you can say it is 1 1, 1 2, 1 3. So this is 1 1. So 2, 1 2. Let this is the state number 2. This is 1. This is 3. So 1 1 state, don't do any calculation now. First you have to do 1 2. So 1 2 state is lambda 1 R, and 1 3 state is lambda 1 into 1 minus PR. Then this can be computed like, let this is x. So x plus like lambda 1 PR plus lambda 1 PR must be equal to 0. That means here if you add all this sum, this must be equal to 0. Okay, so you should find x by taking x plus lambda 1 PR plus lambda 1 minus PR is equal to 0. Thereby you can find the value of this parameter. So here you got minus lambda. You just see here lambda 1 PR minus of lambda 1 PR plus lambda 1 into 1 minus PR is how much? It is lambda 1. So minus of lambda 1 is minus lambda 1. Okay, and similarly, once if you are at this state, okay, you cannot go back to 1 1 state, right? Therefore this parameter is 0. Similarly, coming to 1 3 state, 1 3 state is lambda 2. So here 1 3 state is lambda 2. So how do you find this one? X plus 0 plus lambda 2 is equal to 0. So x is equal to minus lambda 2. So here this is minus lambda 2. So failure rate so can be computed like this. Okay, similarly, once if you are at this position, once if you are at the third position here, you cannot go to, you have to replace basically the components, assuming that that is not the way of computing the reliability. So like replacing means again you have to start once if you replace the reliability. So you cannot go back to first state or you cannot go back to third state. Therefore, the transition rate, so 0, 0, 0. Okay, I think it is clear to you. So once if you find this, okay, once if you find this, then just some mathematics here. Like d by dt of p1t, p2t, p3t. So this is s p1t is equal to something p1t, it will come. Then s plus a formula, s plus a, if you see p1t can be like 1 by s plus a, it is nothing but e power minus lambda t. So okay, this is simple mathematics. You can refer this to understand better. So here the point here is the p1t and p2t or the probability to stay in the first state, the probability to stay in the second state, and probability to stay in the third state with respect to time you can get. Okay, this is with respect to time. Okay, you can see e power minus lambda 1 into t. When t tends to infinity, then this becomes 0. That means the probability to stay in the first position is 0. Okay, similarly, the reliability can be computed as 1 minus the probabilities to stay in the third state is nothing but complete failed state. So 1 minus p3 of t, otherwise p1 of t plus p2 of t is nothing but reliability state, where just a simple mathematics here. If you do this, then you will get r of t. So once if you know r of t, then integrate with respect to time. So from 0 to infinity, you will get mean time to failure. So just for a simple DC-DC converter, okay, then the lambda 1 and lambda 2 and MTTF so lambda 1, lambda 2 and MTTF in this paper you can refer. So it is given like the mean time to failure is 9.8 years. For example, you devise another converter where the mean time to failure is some 20 years, then your algorithm is better. So the amount of MTTF is the final indices to explain, okay, your converter circuit or your associated control strategy is good or not. Similarly, another example, so it is about cascaded converters. So I have two cascaded converters. Okay, now I wish to find the reliability, so using like military handbook. So then what I do was, you just see what will happen if S1 is failed. Okay, if S1 is failed, then I have to, there is no contribution from the VDC. First of all, there is no contribution from the VDC. Okay, if S1 is failed, then I have to turn these two on, S3 on and S4 on, right? S3 on and S4 on. If I turn on, that means I am bypassing this VDC. I am bypassing this VDC. My load only sees the power from the this source, second source. Okay, my load only sees the second source power only. Okay, so here we have to see here when there is no fault. When there is a fault, that is called post fault. It is completely failure mode, failed, complete failed is F. So here I have indicated N, P, F. N is nothing but no fault, I mean post fault, and then complete fail mode. Okay, failed state. NPF is the states I have taken. Now you see lambda 1, 2. Lambda 1, 2. If any switch is failed, see, either this switch is failed, it has some lambda S1, lambda S2. Okay, like it has lambda S1, lambda S2, lambda S3, lambda S4, lambda S5, lambda S6, lambda S7. So in this inverter, fortunately, like all lambdas are same, because voltage stress is same. If it carries the current, all the switches carry the equal amount of current, right? So here the lambda is same for all the switches. Therefore, lambda S1 is equal to lambda S2 is equal to lambda S3 is equal to lambda S4 is equal to lambda S5 is equal to lambda S6 is equal to lambda S7 is equal to lambda 8. So if any switch fails, either this switch or this switch, if any switch fails, then one switch, I am talking about one switch, if any of the one switch fails, then we are coming from no fault state to post fault state. So that is why lambda 1, 2 is given by 8 lambda s. 8 is nothing but lambda 1 plus lambda 2, like that, lambda 8 switches. Okay, therefore total result is 8 lambda. Similarly, lambda 2, 3. lambda 2 3. For example, you have to consider one switch is failed, one switch is already failed. Okay, one switch is failed. If one switch is failed, okay, then just imagine that one switch is failed. Okay, then what is the transition rate from 2 to 3? Sorry, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3. What is the transition from 2 to 3, lambda 2 3? So for example, if this is failed, what will happen? We cannot short circuit, right? We cannot short circuit. If this is failed, we cannot short circuit. So the load is open circuit otherwise. If this is failed, there is no contribution from the source. If this is failed, no contribution from the source. This is failed, no contribution from this is failed, no contribution from the source. So what I can do was, if S1 is failed, okay, and if any of these 6 switches are failed, then you will be going to complete off state. But what happens to this state? Even this is failed, S2 is failed, we don't bother because we can short the these 2 terminals by taking S3 and S4. Okay, so this failure rate need not consider. Other switches which contributes to transit from second state to third state, that is post fault state to complete fail state, is decided by the failure rate of S3, S4, S5, S6, S7, S8. Therefore, lambda 2 3 is given by 6 lambda is. Okay, so coming to the other state, lambda 1 3, that means all of them are working properly. Then at which time it will transmit, or what is the failure rate at which it can transfer from 1 to 3? What is the failure rate? It depends upon the combination. I told you, if it is single switch, then we could directly jump to N to P. But if we have multiple switches, for example, imagine that S1 and S2 is failed. What will happen if S1 and S2, 2 switches are failed at a time? What happens if S1 and S2 fails at a time? Then you can operate it will not come to 1 2 3, because S3, S4, S5, S6, with S5 we can get the power from VDC. But what happens if S1, this 2 fails? What happens? So we can, at a time, if these 2 switches S1 and S3 are fails, then it comes from N to F. Okay, it comes from N to F. So here if you see 1 to 2, 1 to 3, 1 4, the combinations, if you see 2 switch combinations, if I say, there are 28 combinations are there. There are 28 combinations. Okay, what are the 28 combinations? S1, S2, S1, S3 fault, 2 switch failure cases. S1, S2 can be one case, S1, S3 can be other case, S1, S4 can be other case, S1, S5, S6, S7, S8. This can be, there are 28 cases, but there are 28 cases. But if you see, if these 2 fails, S1, S2, we can come from N to P. N to P is possible. So it will not, the transition will not consider here. Similarly, S3, S4, even S3, S4 is failed, then we can short this 2 by S1 and S2. Similarly, S5, S6. Similarly, S7, S8. So if these are failed, if this combination of the switches are failed, so we are not entering from 1 to 3. Okay, we are not moving from no fault to complete fault state. We are moving to this state. This was already explained. But other than these 4 combinations, S1, S3, S1, S4, S1, S5, S1, S7, whatever, other than these 4 combinations, we will get complete working state to complete not working state. Therefore, we have written, if you write 28 minus 4 is 24, and then this lambda is because there are 2 switch failures. 2 switch failures, so multiplication will come. So lambda S square. Okay, lambda S square. Okay, so this is how we can find the lambda 1 2, lambda 2 3, lambda 1 3. Once if you know this, then the same formulas we can work out the same formulas as mentioned here to find the reliability as well as MTTF. Okay, and so we have other type of failure model. Just let me give a glance because already it is 7:30. Basically, the difference between the previous method is, in the previous method, we are not dealing with present working operating conditions basically. So we just it is like offline method. It is a fixed failure method. Like this is called physics of failure method. There was one more method, so which was most of these works are done by Aalborg University. So where we take the solar irradiance, for example, if it is a simple PV grid connected system, then we'll take the mission profiles also into picture, like what is its operating conditions throughout the year, like what is its ambient temperature, what's the radiation. Based on that, we will have some power loss model. So you know that if you know this too, then we can find the power from the PV. Once if you know the power from the PV, then we can find the total power loss. Once if you know the power loss, then we can find the junction temperature. So once if you know the junction temperature, we use like rainflow counting method, and then we use Monte Carlo simulations to find the reliability. The main advantage of going with this is we can find the parameter uncertainties also, because if you see a capacitor, you know, no two capacitors are identical, no IGBTs are identical, no diodes are identical. Okay, the manufacturing uncertainties can be identified or can be computed based on this Monte Carlo analysis and failure distribution models. Okay, and this is a typical mission profile for 12 months. Okay, this is a 1 second sample. So this is how we do. We use SI and PA, and then we do MPPT. Okay, so whatever I did is for the given specifications here. And similarly for the given power to the inverter. So here inverter model will come. So this is a 2-level voltage source inverter. For the 2-level voltage inverter, first we will calculate the power loss. Then we will calculate the junction temperature based on the ambient temperature. The ambient temperature is also one input. So we'll calculate the junction temperature. Once if you know the junction temperature, then we will be using the rainflow counting algorithm. So where in the rainflow counting algorithm, the input is junction temperature, the output is delta Tj is nothing but swing, mean temperature, then on time, then number of cycles. Okay, so there was a formula to calculate the total damage. So the damage is given by this formula, minus rule, so which is a function of a number of failure cycles. Okay, so this number of failure cycles can be found using this mathematical function. And this is the Monte Carlo simulations. Just to, as I told you, like this beta 1, beta 2, beta 3 is the parameter way, like you can like, you know, they can be shown with respect to different values. They are called as a parameter variance can be created. Here you can have a variance 5%, and then like you can use the normal fitting. Once if you use the normal fitting, then this is a Weibull's curve fitting. Using that Weibull's distribution, we will be fitting the output, right? And similarly, this is for beta t, this is for Tj min, this is for delta t. Okay, then once if you have a like this is accumulated damage for all the variants, we'll be considering all the variants, like beta 1, variance of beta 1, variance of beta 2, then Tj, and then delta Tj. Then you will be calculating the accumulated damage. Once if you know the accumulated damage, like 1 by accumulated damage will be given the end of lives. Then so we'll be calculating the unreliability. So using the simple PDF to cumulative PDF. And this is the various literatures available with respect to the mission profile based physics of failure based reliability assessment. So they discuss on the impact of PV array sizing. They discuss on panel degradation rates. They discuss on the influence of high dV by dt. Like they did on battery size or battery control strategy, sizing of device chip area, impact of DC-DC converters, capacitor reliability. And similarly, they did some lot of works on the wind applications also. Like they means here Aalborg University. Many works are from the Aalborg University. And similarly, here on DC side also, a few works are reported on DC microgrids, and then decentralization control strategy, reliability of electric vehicles and hybrid electric vehicles, the lifetime predictions on LEDs, and then different lifetime models of motor drive inverters. Okay, and last, I would like to emphasize 2 points. The reliability can be a function of control also, just to have some to understand the importance. I just made this slide. So from the control perspective, for example, you just see here in this level 3V and this is 2V. Okay, 3V and 2V. Assume that like these two switches are having more voltage stresses compared with other switches. Okay, so you just see here S5, S6 is the two switches just imagine that these 4 switches are more, okay, these 4 switches have more voltage stress. Okay, voltage stress. SA1, SA2, B1, these are having just example, it has some less voltage stress. Okay, imagine that these 4 switches has more voltage stress, the other switches has less voltage stress. Okay, so one control perspective in improving the reliability is to decrease the switching losses. As I told you, the switching losses is a function of the current as well as the blocking voltage. So here you just to take this state 3V and 2V, 3V and 2V, you see this is the switching table. So here I told you there are circuits which has some redundant states also. So this plus 2V and this is plus 3V. Like assume that a converter configuration has some redundant states to get plus 2V. Like if you turn just to see, I can use this, I can use this, I can use this, or I can use this to get a plus 2V. Imagine like one circuit topology, I can have this switching combination or this switching combination or this switching combination. Similarly, plus 3V also I can have this combination and this combination. Okay. Now, when you choose in the control strategy, just imagine that like 1, 0, 0, 1, you see, these are assuming that these are more stressed elements. So 1, 0, 0, 1. Now you see plus 2V, the plus 2V combinations are 0, 1. I have different combinations. I can generate plus 2V by either this combination, okay, either this combination or this combination or this combination. But if I use the combination which is available for plus 3V, you see, the combination available for plus 3V, 1, 0, 0, 1 and 1, 0, 0, 1. So I'm not switching, see, because here we are doing PWM. Between PWM, it is going from plus 3V to 2V, plus 3V to 2V, plus 3V to 2V. Okay. So, but the devices which has more switching stress, I am not changing its position. So either it is plus 3V, like S3 is on, S4 is off, S5 is off, S6 is off. But if it is in the other way, then you know, the system will be subjected to more switching losses. So if similarly, when you are operating 2V and V also, see, when you are operating 2V and V, I assume that it is 1, 0, 0, 1. So you operate this state so that you can have like in the plus 2V, because in 2V range, you'll get 2V or V. Okay, if you are able to change adaptively, then the switches which has more switching stress, no, we can make the switching losses reduce. Okay, and another important work which we did recently to enhance the reliability of the system is you are aware that, you know, so most of the works, even as on date, I have not seen any works related to using the uneven or abnormal voltage levels. You see here, this type of waveforms everyone has seen, plus V, plus 2V, plus 3V, minus V, minus 2V, minus 3V. But we recently did a work, it was published in Industrial Electronics, where we could able to generate without any DC offset using a mixed level. Here it is 2V is not there, but still you can generate the waveform. That means there was a circuit. Okay, one switch was failed, but only available voltage levels are only 0, V, 3V, minus V, minus 3V. You don't have minus 2V or 2V. Okay, so most of the times the authors has not considered this voltage levels at all. They simply make the system out. I mean, it is not operating state. Okay, but we did small analysis, and then we found we developed some simple control strategy to make the DC offset as well as the harmonics, even order harmonics to low value. Similarly, there you see here also, it is a worst scenario. Okay, for example, you have only 3 voltage levels are available. One is 3V, 0, minus V, minus 2V. Okay, these voltage levels alone available. So nobody has worked once if you have only this 4 voltage levels available. So we did some modifications in the control strategy. So to utilize this this voltage levels. Once if you, because for example, the place where the system requires more reliability, but one switch is failed, but you reconfigure the control strategy to make use of the available voltage levels, even they are not equal both in positive and negative half cycles. Okay, so with this I'm opening with the discussions. If you have any questions, or so we can ask.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Shankar. It's a really very good session today. And actually, this is topic. One of the topic actually, reliability aspect is very important aspect in the particularly. I mean, any project domain, and this is what many. I mean, evaluation processes also are criteria. Also, the I mean, judging one of the judging parameters. That's what I also. I mean, tell that. And it's a really wonderful session. I think, I mean, all the students and faculty, and I think they will also get to know what is the scope for research on the reliability aspects in future technologies, and especially in power electronics. Now, I request the participant, if you have any questions, please, they can unmute and then interact with the speaker, or they can post in chat box. Dr. Shankar, there is some questions in chat box.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, one question from Smita Mohanty.
Yeah, what are the main reasons for losing stability with high penetration of renewables using grid following converters? Okay, the answer to the question is, see, in case of you can Mahanti, you can in case possible you can unmute yourself and then you can ask. Basically, there was a pine converters. You can refer, you can text pine converters. Then that power electronics, even with the intelligence, pine means power. I didn't completely like pine. It starts with some sort of intelligence. So there was some pine converters. So where the higher penetration is possible, even so by maintaining the grid stability also. Okay, so one more point.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, now previously we feel that is a problem, right? Because after the higher penetration, the PV cells have low inertia devices and they are more subjected to change. The power from the PV can vary because they are depends on the temperature as well as insulation, right? Smita Mahanti,
Yes, sir.
basically the problem with PV penetration is higher PV penetration, the stability is one issue, because the power from the PV varies with respect to ambient temperature, right?
Yes, sir.
That is the major issue. And now that is one aspect. Similarly, the power is not available at the night time, right? That is, these are the two major hurdles or major challenges when we are dealing with the PV power. Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
this one way of addressing this challenge is, you like complete world should be connected together. I mean, the electrical grid is not like India one grid. It is not a one India one grid. It should be a universe. I mean, it should be a whole world. If world is connected, somewhere the power is there, right? Yeah. That, are you clear? This is how we can address the challenge. That is one way of addressing the challenge. So other way of addressing the challenge is creating some inertia. Nowadays, capacitors, super capacitors are coming into picture. Okay, so super capacitors, or even the works on the energy storage, like low cost energy storage. Nowadays the batteries still costlier. So the works related to the energy storage people are doing. In case if we find any low cost solution, then definitely we can avoid this problem.
Sir, actually, my question is like, why grid forming is preferred over grid following? Because with nowadays we are means grid following converters are there, and the system is stable. Like now also the inertia is not there, but anyhow the system stability is maintained. So why should we go for grid forming?
See, I just actually in case of PV system, okay, one
Yes,
aspect is to give the reactive powers also, reactive power injection once
yes,
if it demands. Okay,
yes.
now see, like grid forming converters means you mean to maintain like voltage and frequency constant.
No, so actually, in grid following, it's work. The converter works like a means it's a current source. It's just injecting the power and P and Q to the grid. But in
Okay,
grid forming converter, the converter works like a voltage source, like like a synchronous machine, voltage source with a series impedance. So in that actually we are not connecting a PLL. Like in grid following converter we are connecting a PLL and we are synchronized with the conventional system. After that just the converter is injecting the required amount of P and Q. But in
okay.
grid forming converter we are not synchronized with the conventional system. Like using Droop controls, the converters are working like a voltage source converter, and means with their own frequency and voltage these converters are working.
No,
And
actually, yeah.
yes,
Actually, once if you have a grid integrated system,
yes
okay,
sir.
so they
Yes,
have to be in line with the voltage and the frequencies. That is one point. Okay,
yes,
and
yes,
coming to see, you are talking about the droop control and all, right? So basically, what we do was if you have a inverter and if you have a solar integrated system, okay,
yes,
the
yes,
capacitor is basically a DC link.
yes sir.
Capacitor is basically a DC link. Then the capacitor voltage has to be maintained constant. Okay. So
Yes sir.
otherwise you cannot, no, we cannot maintain the voltage. No, you have to give the power to the grid, right? Okay. Either way,
Yes,
it is problem. Even you cannot increase the. So you need to maintain the DC link voltage constant. That's the whole idea. If you have
yeah,
more
yeah.
power, you have more power into the DC link. The same power has to be make out of the DC link. For example, you do MPPT.
Yes,
Okay, 100 watts is
yes sir.
coming into the capacitor. You already aware that voltage across capacitor is given by 1 by C integral IDT. Whatever the currents into the capacitor has to go out of the capacitor
Yes
to
sir.
maintain the voltage constant. Okay. So
Hmm.
see whether it is injecting the active power, whether it is injecting the reactive power, this has to be maintained same. That means what I mean to say was like voltage, frequency, inverter side, it should be constant only.
Okay sir.
Okay. Pretty
Yes sir.
clear? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, fine.
Okay, thank you sir.
Thank you. Yeah. So one more question is, why do you consider loss of load probability while calculating MTTF?
Why don't you consider actually?
Yeah, sorry. Why don't you consider loss of load probability while calculating MTTF? I'm sorry, can you unmute yourself and then ask a question? Krishna Mohan Reddy.
Yes, sir. While calculating MTTF, sir, you have considered that 1 by lambda s plus lambda d plus lambda c plus lambda l.
Okay.
You haven't considered about the load.
Okay, fine. No, actually this that is what I told you, right? This is a mission, this is not a mission profile based data. Okay, so they are called constant failure models. Can you mute yourself, Krishna Mohan Reddy?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Basically, that lambda values, you have seen that lambda values depends upon Tj. Okay, Tj again, it's a function of power loss. power loss and then load power is, it's interlinked, right? So we have indirectly we have considered. Are you clear?
Okay.
See, yeah. So any other question?
One more is there from Jami Rajesh.
Is there any way of, for if it is capacitors failed, then it will convert from fully working state to post failure state for the interleaved boost converter? See, if you connect two capacitors, that is possible. If you connect two capacitors, if the capacitor is open circuit, that is possible. But again, it is not going to post fault state. It goes to same state. I mean, fault free state only.
Okay. Fine.
So, is my answer clarified, Rajesh?
Sir, may I know the topology for connecting another capacitor for this interleaved boost converter to maintain a fully working state?
No, just to connect the two capacitors. That's it. That is what I told. Just a parallel capacitor.
So how to connect it?
Parallel
Okay.
capacitance. C1 and C2 parallel.
Okay, okay, sir.
Okay, fine.
Okay. And one there is one maybe one question from my end, actually, general question.
Yes, sir.
Actually, in suppose as a engineer, as a researcher or somebody, if we are working on some converter topology, for selection of an option itself, there are different types of selection. Like, I may choose a discrete semiconductor device, and then I can build some kind of a maybe two-level inverter or something. Or sometimes I have option that I can take one leg of stack that can build my whole inverter. Or there will be nowadays there is a whole stack, or full stack or complete model of converter or inverter topologies are available from the manufacturing industry, whatever semiconductor
Correct.
manufacturing.
Correct.
In that case, how do you compare this reliability aspect, and which one I should choose it and then go with and get it more reliability, like for practical deployment or industrial application?
Yeah, actually, for example, if these two are same rating, whatever, like one is independent, one is like a component level, other is a system level. So one manufacturer is giving a component level, then we fabricate from our side, and other manufacturing is a component level. He gives complete voltage source inverter. Then there are, as I told you, like the data, the manufacturer data sheet is one important parameters to find the reliability aspects. Like they will be given like what is its thermal resistance between the heat sink, and similarly between like there are some parameters like even the voltage stress, even the current stress. So based on that, even like as I told you, the thermal resistance between the junction to case and then case to ambient temperature. So based on that, we will be calculating the reliability analysis. But see what happens was sometimes independent main prospect of the reliability is to reduce the levelizer cost. So if I want to reduce the levelizer cost, you see, if we have a one circuit, one IC embedded with all simple voltage source inverter, they have their own merits and demerits. So merits are like like they are like all the IGBTs are very close. There is no stray inductance or stray capacitance. Therefore, the length of even we can say that they work for a long time. But in case of the independent component, that advantage is, the merit is, if one system, one switch is failed, then we can replace that particular switch. So here again, so coming to the reliability assessment again, so it depends completely on the data sheet of the given manufacturer. It may vary. So one based on the device which you choose, sometimes individual components are better than like, we call that as intelligent power modules.
Okay, yeah. One more question continuing to this. Maybe like, for battery, in case of general battery, if you take it, like, the manufacturer will give this many cycles, it will be valid. And at
Yes,
the same time, also, they will say, or 2 years or 1 year, whichever is earlier, something like he used to tell us.
correct.
And similarly, in the future, can we expect some kind of a, suppose if I buy a power electronic converter, or can a manufacturer can able to tell us, this is the cycles, or I mean, this is a number of working hours, or number of, I mean, days or years, like that. Can you mention the aging? Is it possible in the future?
Actually, uh, um, in case of semiconductor devices, there was a parameter called number of cycles to failure, NF. I have shown you in the presentation. There was a NF and there was a delta TG. The delta TG is very important parameter because the failure of the semiconductor is because of thermal limits. That is the first reason. Once if it exceed set value, then they tend to fail. The other important reason is if we have a swing, if we have a temperature change, then that the devices inside the semiconductor devices they will compress and expand, compress and expand. If you are operating at a high frequency, they tend to compress and expand. Therefore, no, mechanically, I mean, I'm talking with respect to mechanical vibrations will come and their failure rate may increase or decrease. I mean, they may increase. The point here is, yes, the manufacturer's data sheet, if you see, they give number of cycles to failure versus delta TJ, like that is called a temperature swing. So based on that, we have to estimate the lifetime. Whatever, like I told you, mean time to failure is the one the data sheets also will give, okay, the mean time to failure. So when they operate beyond this temperature, when they operate beyond like for specific applications, it is available. So application note, they'll be given this type of data.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Singh. And I think one more question, but it's not clear from Kitmohan Reddy. How can I apply this strategy to microgrid for a solution? I mean, which strategy? It's not clear here.
Yeah, Krishna Mohan Reddy, you can unmute and then just
Sir, what you have done this, can I apply this strategy to microgrid, sir? Means mean time to failure.
yes, you can apply.
How,
Because
sir?
in case of, yeah, actually, there was a papers I have shown you, right?
Yes, sir.
You can simply write like this: mission profile based level reliability analysis in DC microgrid. You just go through Google,
Yes, sir. Yes. Yes.
then you can get so many papers, especially the works from the Albert University.
Okay.
Yes,
In the presentation slide I have shown you,
yes, sir.
it is possible.
Okay.
I just unmute Krishna Mohan Reddy. I'll elaborate a little bit about this. Yeah. So in case of DC microgrids, so here in what is available in the literature is they have taken a DC grid. It is not a simple integrated grid. They have taken a DC grid where the fuel cell is connected, battery is connected, okay, and the loads are connected. And in between, they have chosen some different converters. For example, if a PV is taken, they can consider simple boost converter. Battery is there, then they connected a buck converter. Similarly, fuel cell they have connected a high gain converters. And then based on like they calculate, they take the mission profile, I mean solar data, like temperature data, and then irradiation data, and then load data also. Then they estimated the power loss. They estimated once if you know the power loss, they estimated the junction temperature. Then they use rainflow counting algorithm and Monte Carlo techniques to find the reliability of the given system. Okay, it is available. Krishna Mohan, it is available.
Okay. Yeah. I think if no further questions, I think we can conclude this session. Okay, Dr. Shankar, with your permission, then we will come to
Yes.
conclusion of the session. Is it okay?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So let me take this opportunity to propose formal vote of thanks formally to conclude the session today. And first of all, I would love on behalf of IEEE Power Electronics Industry Applications and Power and Energy Joint Chapter Vizag Bay section. And I would like to thank Dr. Shankar from NIT Andhra Pradesh for accepting our invitation and delivering the wonderful session today on reliability aspects of power electronics and converter systems actually. And it's a really, actually, it's a one of the, I mean, rare area, and also it's a very emerging area for young researchers and to focus on these reliability aspects in any systems actually, not only power electronics. If you're working in power systems and power electronics or grid systems, anything. So reliability is a very common aspect and also very important aspect. So one should focus. Then only whatever the project will be, successful, and it can be accepted for deployment in practically also. So in that way, it's a very good session today what we had, and I would like to thank him on this occasion for accepting our invitation. And at the same time, I would like to extend my thanks to our Vizag based section chair, Dr. Lakshmi Narayana, for giving constant support to our chapter for conducting more and more programs actually. And also extend my thanks to our chapter exam members and then other members of IEEE Vizag based section. And now, I also most importantly, I must thank all the participants of the program today, and thank you for joining today and make this program, a grand success. Yeah. So thank you all. And the next talk we are arranging on the next Saturday, and that is on 20th March, Saturday, same time, 6:30 to 7:30. So title of the talk is Grid Synchronization and Multifunctional Control of Voltage Source Inverter in Distribution Generation Systems. Speaker is Dr. Rajshekhar Reddy from NIT Surat. So I'm going to share the details of the registration details very soon. So we'll meet next Saturday. So thank you all. Thank you all.
Yeah. Thank you, Sandeep.